Hello, hope everyone's doing well. It's time to crack on with this Porsche 991 Generation 1 GTS 3.8 engine here. So I am planning on going on a road trip in September, so it'd be nice to have this swapped over by then and working. I've decided to do the engine here on the driveway. Be brave. Looked at hiring a ramp, but the chap I know has only got a four-poster rather than one of those two-posters. So I'm thinking it's probably not going to be much easier than actually doing it here. Fingers crossed, and of course, weather dependent. I'm always going to be at the mercy of the weather. So my plan is to drop the engine down onto, well, I'm going to use this couple of these along with one of these motorcycle jacks that takes about 400 kilos. I'm going to use two of these. So my plan is to drop the engine and gearbox down onto a couple of them and wheel the thing out. So I need to get the car high enough to do that, and I've got some jacks I think are going to be high enough to do that, so we'll see how we get on with that. And then of course, once I've got the engine out, I'm going to swap the ancillaries over here and clean this up as I go. I did actually get a quote to get this ice blasted, and believe it or not, it was, you know, people were throwing figures of £400 plus just to do the engine, which seemed a bit mad. So my plan is to give that a sort of clean and good scrub with some warm water and some of this phosphoric acid here, which is supposed to be very good for cleaning corroded aluminium. And I'm going to take the inlet headers off here and clean the inlet valves, of course. Generally give it a good service before it goes in. What else? I think that's about it, really. So yeah, the first task is to get this car in place on the driveway, jack it up, and start pulling bits and pieces of it to get this engine out. So here we go. So here's the offending vehicle. I'm thinking, I believe there's a permanent body member going across here somewhere, and I've kind of figured that the engine is about this high, and so I'm thinking, yeah, this has got to come up to at least here. So I'm kind of obviously guesstimating here, but I reckon 60 centimeters is going to be plenty to be getting this engine out.
So with the rear wheels loosened, it's time to check the car up. Now this car is actually 20mm lower than stock, so it makes life even more difficult to get access underneath this to check the thing up. So what I'm doing is checking the front up here and dropping it onto axle stands, both sides, on the checking pads at the front. I'm using this orange highlighted pad there that is a silicon pad that protects the actual chassis jacking point from any damage there. So that's two stands under the front, and then it's time to move on to the back. Now fortunately my jacks have pad extensions, so I can add another 15 to 20 centimetres onto the height, making life much easier to jack the back of this up to the desired height. let the disassembly begin. So starting with removing the cooling fans and the covers at the top of the engine there, and the duct towel. Next the lights, then the wheels need to come off, followed by the rear bumper assembly. Not forgetting on this rear bumper assembly, there's also an attached wiring loom for the rear number plates, and now the heat covers for the mufflers and the exhaust system can come off, and this will reveal this car's lovely titanium aftermarket lightweight exhaust system. Next, the air filter, and the air filter's got two solenoids and two vacuum lines attached to that need to come off, plus an additional, I think it's a resonance connector that generates your induction sound from the back when you're in sports mode, which is what one of those vacuum actuators does. So you're probably getting the picture now. I'm going to speed most of this disassembly up. Otherwise we'll have hours and hours of filming. But now it's time to remove the titanium exhaust system that comes off in 3 separate sections, I believe. And once that's off, it's then time to drain the engine oil. Now this bit's unnecessary, but in the back of my mind I'm thinking if I take the fan belt off now, there might be a chance that I can take the air conditioning compressor off here at this stage and drop the engine, leaving that in situ. I'll just show you that fan belt actually, because it's quite funny. So there's this bolt you have to undo here, and this is one of the engine mounting bolts. There's 4 of them that attach to a bracket, and then this bracket, that's this bracket here, going to these PASM devices. Anyway, you have to take this bolt out, and it's obviously got a hole in the chassis here to feed it out, and take the spacer out in order to feed the fan belt past where that bolt and spacer was, and it's a really tight fit, but you see it just squeezes down there between the pulley wheel and the engine bracket. It's so difficult, I can't really do it without putting the camera down, but that's the fan belt. That's a bit mad, isn't it? Yeah, so I didn't actually get around to putting that fan belt in finally when I put this engine back in, but I'm sure it's quite a difficult task to put that back in because you've got to depress the, what would you call it, the tension wheel far enough to get the fan back on, so that must be extremely awkward. Anyway, all good intentions, as you'll see later on. I was wasting my time trying to get that compressor out. But we'll get to that a bit later. Yeah, so now just taking the downpipes and cats off, both sides. Then I think from memory that was pretty much a day's work. I was having some good weather, which is always in the back of your mind when you're doing something like this on the driveway. You want these clear days of constant good weather. That's where sometimes having a proper workshop can pay dividends, but fortunately we've had a great summer as it emerged.
Right, a couple of days have passed and I've had a couple of days of bad weather here, so I'll show you where it is. It's a new day here. Show you where I'm at. And I've pretty much stripped most of the stuff down on the engine that's going in here. The injector rails here with the injectors, I'm thinking about taking them out and get them tested, but a bit concerned about actually pulling them out at this stage. I don't want to actually damage them, so I've ordered some new seals for them. And in addition, once I've get the damaged engine out, I'm going to remove the fuel rails and injectors on them to see exactly how difficult it is before tackling this one, because I don't want to end up in this situation where I need new injectors or something, which are obviously very expensive. But this is pretty much ready to start cleaning up and swapping over the ancillaries from the old engine now. I've just got this side, this bank here of inlet valves to clean up. I'll show you the actual carbon build-up on them. So this is an engine that's done 46,000 miles, and this is the carbon we've got here. It's flashing a bit. Let's see if I can get a better view there. Camera still needs a light, doesn't it? Hopefully you can see that without too much strobing. Okay, you can see the valve stems there and the degree of carbon on those stems. There we go. And so this side I've already started to clean. I've simply softened the carbon up with some WD-40 and then been using a rag on a stick to clean it out, the softened carbon, until it's started to shine a bit, obviously making sure the valves are shut. Yeah, so that's not too bad actually for a direct injection engine at 46,000 miles. I was quite pleasantly surprised. So I have also got another direct injection car, a Kia Stinger, and I did take a look at that at 25,000 miles, and it was a lot worse. So it looks like the Porsche's air oil separator valve, because it doesn't actually have an oil catch can, it has a separator box, which I think is this thing here, seems to be working quite well. I'll show you where we're at with the car. Yeah, so I began to remove lots of ancillaries on the car here, and the air conditioning compressor here, I've loosened and undone the fixings there, and I'm quite hopeful that this will come off without having to disconnect the hoses. So I'm hoping to leave that in situ once I drop the engine down a little lower. However, unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to take the inlet manifold off to actually get at this last bolt, get that out of the way too, because that's, can you see that's just quite in the, not quite clearing the manifold, so that's the last bit that's stopping this compressor coming off. But once that comes off, there's no reason that can't hang on these hoses, and so I won't have to drain the air conditioning gas. So this is pretty much ready to go, I believe. You know, the cooling pipes, the wiring harness for the engine, the fuel pipe and so on, that's all disconnected, that's ready to go. So under here, next I'll be removing this cross member, and then tackling further forwards, removing anything attached to the gearbox and the gearbox attaching point under there. And then this engine is pretty much ready to drop. It's just held in here, zoom out a little bit, on these two mounting bolts here. That's what's holding the whole back of the rear of this engine, or yeah, rear of this engine, on this bracket here, which attaches to these dampers. Incidentally, these dampers look quite easy to replace actually. They're supposed to be a common problem. So if they did need replacing, it doesn't look too bad a job. Yep. So there's not really going to be a great deal to see. underneath until this engine starts to drop down a bit, so we'll return to it then. Right, well, if you're still with me and followed this far, then I think I'm just about ready to drop this engine now. I've taken most of the stuff off here, ready to go. So got the cross member with the what do they call it, the anti-roll bar, and these braces. The axles came off. They're all held on by a ton of these Torx bolts, and I think without an impact driver like this, you really haven't got a lot of chance of getting that off, because the wheels will be spinning, unless of course you can lock the wheels to stop them spinning. Let's save that hassle. And yeah, I'm pretty much ready to go here. I've got, what I elected to do actually is I bought myself a motorcycle jack that can carry £1,500 for the engine itself, because that's quite heavy, and I'm going to go with the original solution. Let's get to hold the gearbox there. So yeah, didn't really encounter any other issues. Got the gearbox cables off, and there's some gearbox wiring coming in from the inside of the cabin, so that's all undone. And also on the gearbox, the other side, there was a vacuum hose. I think that's pretty much it. That's ready to go. So I'll give you some time lapse. What I'm going to do is drop it down enough to see if I can then get that air conditioning compressor off. So wish me luck.
So I've just dropping the engine here enough to get in there to the inlet manifold, which being a GTS here, it's quite a complicated affair with three sections. The middle bit with the inlet from the carburetor, and then there's like two separate sections on the right and left, and they in turn split into their own constituent parts as well.
Right, little update. It was possible to get the intake manifold off, but unfortunately it was still impossible to get the compressor off. It just had its inlet hoses too close and jammed in, and impossible to do. So worth trying, but you never know until you try. So I've had it drained, and now I think it's pretty much there, and I should be able to drop this engine. So let's crack on with that.
And it's a case of just using the lifts back and forwards to drop the thing down slowly as far as it'll go, checking either side, and either ends very carefully, and through the engine bay there to make sure there's nothing actually trapped, nothing that I may have forgotten, no hoses that are going to get squashed and wires that are going to get torn. So slowly does it, and then jacking the body up here, both sides, and checking as I go. So I got that little yellow level there to make sure that I'm checking each side up evenly. Yay, she's out.
Hello, if you've followed me this far, it's a new day, and I'm getting ready to change the take the ancillary components off of the old engine here, in preparation for putting them back onto the replacement engine. So that's what I'll be doing here. Getting the engine and gearbox out actually turned out to be a lot easier than I imagined it would. In fact, it was an awful lot easier than dropping the engine on my Kia Stinger, which I did last year to change its gearbox. So that was a pleasant surprise. This, if you can see, this jack here, this is a motorcycle jack that's readily available at about £80 from Amazon, or even other online places. Temu, I think, do it a little bit less. And I've got to say, it's an absolute godsend for this Porsche engine. It's just absolutely perfect. So if you're getting involved in anything like this, I highly recommend looking at that. Yeah, so it's gone very well. I've obviously taken the gearbox off. this gearbox was held in by just 5 bolts around here. Obviously there's no torque converter either, so that makes things easy. Actually, I think it would be possible to remove this gearbox, leaving the engine in if you needed to. If it's possible to get to this bolt here by tilting the gearbox down enough to get up there and undo this bolt, then I can't really see any reason why this couldn't be taken out in situ if really needed to. Yeah, interesting thing, I've given this a clean up as well. I've completely sprayed it with gunk and then power washed it. Up here, I had this big kind of patch of oil, and it seemed to be just vaping out of this breather pipe over time, and it was really annoying. I used to always think I could smell that horrible smell of gearbox oil occasionally, just occasionally, you know. I'd stop at traffic lights and I'd get a strange whiff or something, and I'd often look under the car seeing if there's anything leaking, and there was nothing there. This was all clean, but yeah, all that was is this patch of oil here vaping onto this, and then I suppose it's just kind of smelling when it gets hot. So if you've got a smell of gearbox oil, that's probably what it is. So there's the new engine waiting to have its new bits back on, and yeah, this is ready to go. If you take a quick look at the inlet valves here, they're not too bad actually. They're quite clean on this old engine. You see that? You can see the valve stems there. Actually, this inlet manifold on this GTS engine is quite interesting. And this is the rest of it here. It has these vacuum operated flaps here and here, and they all close at different RPMs. And the idea is apparently when the inlet valve slams shut, the pressure wave bounces back and then back again, and kind of helps its induction. It gives it a little bit of forced induction. So high RPMs, I guess that would be shut, and the pressure wave would bounce back. Even higher RPMs, this one would be open, this one would be shut, and so it travels up here to bounce back, or should I say lower RPMs. And I suppose the lowest RPM, the forced induction, would bounce all the way back to here and force this one in. There's an interesting video on it. I'll post a link below for that. Right, let's crack on with it.
This engine, it has so many vacuum tubes, and of course they're all clipped on along with the engine wiring loom. So I want to get the engine wiring loom and the vacuum hoses off all in one piece here, so that I know where everything is in position and I don't have to figure out each individual hose afterwards. And of course I want to be very careful not to stress or break any of the electrical clips on the wiring harness or any of the engine sensors either. So just taking a bit of care here. Also on my engine I have a slightly different heat exchanger, and that's all part of the assembly that the oil filters attach at the top there. So I'm taking that off to swap those two over between engines. And of course ordering all of the gaskets underneath and seals from Porsche beforehand.
Right, well, I've run into a little bit of a problem here because I removed all the items on the engine, the old engine, including the injectors, and they came out okay. It was just a case of levering the fuel rail up, and all 3 injectors came out nice and cleanly without any issues at all. And that spurred me on thinking, well, the replacement engine's going to be the same, so I want to get those injectors out, get them cleaned and tested, and pop them back in before I put the engine back. And well, they've all come out apart from one. Now I've had a good look online, and there's no special tool to get this thing out. There's nowhere to grip it especially. So I'm going to give it some heat and use the mole grips on it. I think that's the only approach I've got left. And in the back of my mind, I'm kind of panicking a little now, because I'm thinking, if this injector's not going to come out, I might miss my deadline to get this car back on the road by the end of the month. I might end up with a situation where, God forbid, I've got to take that head off and remove it from the inside, or drill it out or something. I really seriously don't want to be going down that road, but anyway, let's see how it goes. So this is the injector in question. It's obviously going to be destroyed, but that's fine. I just want the thing out cleanly here. Yeah, this is where the other two have come out okay, and this is what it looks like intact. It's just a tight fit. There's this tight fitting ring here and here, and then this seal here, and it just pushes in, so it should just pull out. And you can see there's no real point on it, and this is a rubber boot here to keep it dry in there and dust free, but there's no exact place where you can get a good grip on this to pull it out if it's stuck. So wish me luck. Right, another quick update. It's another day. I've swapped the broken engine off here and put it on this engine stand, ready to take apart at leisure when I get round to that. And I've got the good engine, which I'm now starting to put the ancillaries back on. But I've still got this issue with this injector. I've had it soaking for 48 hours now in penetrating oil, and with a decent pair of mole grips I've managed to start twisting this thing, but it's just still not pulling out. I'll show you what I think it is. I think this ring here is literally corroded solid in there, and it's just not moving. So this is twisting, but that's just solid, and it's just not going to pull out as soon as it's solid, because it's held in by this circlip here, so it's just not going to move. I don't know, I'm getting quite desperate really. I'm thinking if it is moving though, then this bottom bit is moving, so I suppose if the worst comes to the worst, I could sort of think about coming in from the top and drilling the thing out, getting rid of this body here, and then that would give me access to this corroded ring, and then hopefully then there would be enough of this left to just pull that out. And of course, if I go down that road and that doesn't happen, then those heads are going to have to come off, and that's a big delay for me, because I'm pretty sure there's timing tools for the camshaft here, which I haven't got yet. I need to get them. So there's a lot of bits and bobs that I'll need, and that's going to make it very difficult to get this back in by the end of the month. So really, don't want to go down that road. Out of desperation, I've ordered an injector puller from Temu that looks like it might or may not help. Probably won't. It's just desperation really, and it's probably not going to arrive for days. I've also ordered a decent gas torch so I can heat this thing up really hot. See if that helps. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm waiting for the gaskets for these ancillaries to arrive, which should be arriving this week at the Porsche dealer. And of course, I need to get those injectors off, cleaned and tested, and then it'll be ready to get back in the car. So that's where we're at.